Hi, friends. We are not going to do a whole lot of work today because it's virtual field day, but I am going to still read you a story. And as I read it, I want you to be thinking about how is it similar to the other stories we've read this week? Or maybe it's just one or two stories it's similar to this week. Think about the lesson, what we can learn from the story when we get to the end, and think about how that might compare to some of the other lessons we've learned. This is called A Chair for My Mother by Vera B. Williams. My mother works as a waitress in the Blue Tile Diner. After school, sometimes I go to meet her there. Then her boss, Josephine, gives me a job too. I wash the salts and peppers and fill the ketchups. One time I peeled all the onions for the onion soup. When I finish, Josephine says, "Good work, honey," and pays me. Every time I put half of my money into the jar. I just glanced at the page and I inserted a word, but I noticed that there is no word tip there, so I had to go back and change it. It takes a long time to fill a jar this big. Every day when my mother comes home from work, I take down the jar. My mama empties all her change from tips out of her purse for me to count. Then we push all the coins into the jar. Sometimes my mama is laughing when she comes home from work. Sometimes she's so tired she falls asleep while I count the money out into piles. Some days she has lots of tips. Some days she has only a little. Then she looks worried. But each evening, every single shiny coin goes into the jar. We sit in the kitchen to count the tips. Usually, Grandma sits with us too. While we count, she likes to hum. Often she gets money in her old leather wallet for us. Whenever she gets a good bargain on tomatoes or bananas or something she buys, she puts by the savings and they go into the jar. When we can't get a single other coin into the jar, we are going to take all the money and go and buy a chair. Yes, a chair. A wonderful, beautiful, fat, soft armchair. We will get one covered in velvet with roses all over it. We are going to get the best chair in the whole world. That is because our old chairs burned up. There was a big fire in our other house. All our chairs burned. So did our sofa, and so did everything else. That wasn't such a long time ago. My mother and I were coming home from buying new shoes. I had new sandals. She had new pumps. We were walking to our house from the bus. We were looking at everyone's tulips. She was saying that she liked the red tulips, and I was saying that I liked the yellow ones. Then we came to our block. So this is the narrator of the story is telling about how everything burned. So they kind of went back in time, and she's telling about a memory now. Right outside our house stood two big fire engines. I could see lots of smoke. Tall orange flames came out of the roof. All the neighbors stood in a bunch across the street. Mama grabbed my hand and we ran. My Uncle Sandy saw us and ran to us. Mama yelled, "Where's Mother?" I yelled, "Where's my grandma?" My Aunt Ida waved and shouted, "She's here, she's here. She's okay, don't worry." Grandma was all right. Our cat was safe too, though it took a while to find her. But everything else in our whole house was spoiled. What was left of the house has turned to charcoal and ashes. We went to stay with my mother's sister, Aunt Ida, and Uncle Sandy. Then we were able to move into the apartment downstairs. We painted the walls yellow. The floors were all shiny, but the rooms were very empty. The day we moved in, the neighbors brought pizza and cake and ice cream, and they brought a lot of other things too. The The family across the street brought a table and three chairs. The very old man next door gave us a bed from when his children were little. My other grandpa brought us his beautiful rug. My mother's other sister, Sally, had made us red and white curtains. Mama's boss, Josephine, bought pots and pans, silverware and dishes. My cousin brought me her own stuffed bear. Everyone clapped when my grandma made a speech. You are the kindest people, she said, and we thank you very, very much. It's lucky we're young and we can start all over. Does this remind you of a story that we read this week? That was last year, but we still have no sofa and no big chairs. When Mama comes home, her feet hurt. There's no good place for me to take a load off my feet, she says. When Grandma wants to sit back and hum and cut up potatoes, she has to get as comfortable as she can on a hard kitchen chair. So that is how come Mama brought home the biggest jar she could find at the diner, and all the coins started to go into the jar. Now the jar is too heavy for me to lift up. Uncle Sandy gave me a quarter. He had to boost me up so I could put it in. After supper, Mama and Grandpa and I stood in front of the jar. Well, I never would have believed it, but I guess it's full, Mama said. My brother brought home little paper wrappers for the nickels and dimes and the quarters. I counted them all out and wrapped them all up. On my mother's day off, we took all the coins to the bank. The bank exchanged them for $10 bills. Then we took the bus downtown to shop for our chair. We shopped through 4 furniture stores. We tried out big chairs and little ones, high chairs and low chairs, soft chairs and harder ones. Grandma said she felt like Goldilocks and the three bears trying out all the chairs. Finally, we found the chair we were all dreaming of, and the money in the jar was enough to pay for it. We called Aunt Ida and Uncle Sandy. They came right down to in their pickup truck to drive the chair home for us. They knew we couldn't wait for it to be delivered. I tried out our chair in the back of the truck. Mama wouldn't let me sit there while we drove, but they let me sit in it while they carried it up to the door. We set the chair right beside the window with the red and white curtains. Grandma and Mama and I all sat in it while Aunt Ida took our picture. Now Grandma sits in it and talks with people going by in the daytime. Mama sits down and watches the news on TV when she comes home from her job. After supper, I sit with her and she can reach right up and turn out the light if I fall asleep on her lap. The end. Now, you might be thinking that both of these books have to do with a chair, both this one and Peter's chair. And you're right, they do both have a chair in them. But I was really thinking about this part here and the lesson that we can learn. One lesson is about how they're saving up all their money. And that if you work really hard, you can achieve your dreams. That's one lesson of the story. But another lesson is also take care of each other and help out people who need things. And be a good neighbor and a good friend. And that reminds me of Peter's chair and how Peter decided that he was going to help out his sister by giving stuff that he didn't need anymore to her. And that's kind of what happened in the chair for my mother. Both stories have people helping each other. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day.